What is up, everybody? This is the Petty Eddie podcast, and welcome to 2023 for my show. I'm not saying Happy New Year because there's a 3-day statute of limitations. If you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm, Larry David tells you that. But welcome to 2023. I took the 2 weeks off at the end of the year because of the holidays, and last week I didn't feel I could talk football because of what happened to Damar Hamlin. Luckily, he is a lot better now. He's released from the hospital earlier today, so that's good. Everyone's spirits are lifted. And hopefully he has a recovery. Obviously, see who my guest is on the screen. We'll get to him in just 1 second. But this is a loaded night. I'm batting leadoff tonight. We have 4 shows back to back to back. So from now until 11 o'clock, we're going to be on the air talking Browns. A lot of things to talk about. Season just ended officially last week. It ended 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago for playoff hopes. And then, new defensive coordinators on the way. So we'll talk about that. But I lead this off. 8 o'clock, Faithful Dogs podcast. Zach, Jack, and Tyler. They're going to be talking about the defensive coordinator. Then the Bark and Brown show, normally Tuesday nights. Some scheduling conflicts. A couple guys couldn't make it. Join Jacob and Nick for that. Also, shout out to Jacob. He left Dog Pound Daily recently and went to go to the Browns Wire. Traitor. But I wish him all the best. I know he's going to kill it over there, so shout out to him. So that comes on at 8 or at 9, sorry. And then after that is Dog Chug, one of my favorite podcasts, not because they're my network people, not because they just talk Browns. And they have a good time. It's like a late night sketch show, sort of. And it's fantastic. They do like a chug, sip, or spit towards the end, like with different takes they have and things. Check that out. They have a bevy of guests tonight, 10 p.m. Join Andy, Roger, and Ross. 3 of my favorite people on Brown's Twitter. They are my network teammates. And they are seriously 3 of the funniest people I've met on this social media app. Homage, make sure to go check them out. As you can see, I finally upgraded shirts I usually wear the NFL Jam with Myles Garrett and Nick Chubb. This is the Nick Chubb Blitz shirt. If you need one, go find one of our links at network_216. And speaking of homage and in our network, we're giving away 3 NBA Jam shirts. They just brought out 15 new ones. Make sure to check that out. Go check out network_216 for more details. And the winners will be announced a week from today on the 18th. I believe they're doing that on the Faithful Dogs podcast. They might do it prior to that, earlier in the day. I'm not positive. I didn't get too much of the details, so I don't have service at work. But yeah, check out Homage. They have a bunch of great things. I just got a new hoodie for myself. Thanks to them. They gave us a nice Christmas present, hoodie in this shirt. My mom got me a bunch of shirts. It's awesome. And without further ado, as you see, Randy Gurzi, he's been on before. This is the site expert / editor, whatever you want to call it, at Dog Pound Daily, where I do all my sports writing for right now. Randy, welcome to the show. How you doing mentally, physically, spiritually?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me, Eddie.
Of course. And, we talk almost every day, whether it's a couple times a day or sometimes it's the duration of the day. More so during games is the duration of the day. I'm glad to have you back on. We've become, I think, pretty good friends. Pretty good colleagues at Dog Pound Daily. And speaking of Dog Pound Daily, we were in the top 5 of NFL sites for 2022. So shout out to all of us.
Yeah, way to go, everyone.
Yeah, so check everyone out over there. Not Jacob, because he left us like a traitor. But
yeah,
good luck to him. But yeah, everyone else, check everything else out. I released something today, the 3 biggest offseason needs for the Browns, which we're going to get into that here shortly. Before we get to that, we're going to start with the 2022 season. When the trade was made for Deshaun Watson, I know myself and Randy and a few others over at the site, said the move was never about 2022 because no one knew about the suspension. We knew it was coming. We didn't know the games. It was for 2023 and beyond. And then obviously the suspension went from 6 games to 11. So he missed most of the season. These last 6 games, I know I've said it a bunch on Twitter. Randy said it a bunch on Twitter. We both said it on Dog Pound Daily. Other teammates of ours have said similar things and echoed similar sentiments, and so some people on Twitter don't understand. These last 6 games were more of a preseason for Deshaun Watson to get him ready for next year. And people are like, oh, well, why is he going to take another layoff? In the offseason, right? Oh, yeah, he is, but that's what everyone does. But now he's going to be the fully into the offense. There shouldn't be any suspensions next year that I know of. God forbid we have to go through that again. So let's start there with Watson. The 6 games with Watson, what did you see from him, Randy?
One of the main things that I saw is you touched on it. It was really an extended preseason for him. He went 700 days. People will sit there and say, well, he had practice, he had preseason. That's not the same. And plus to go 700 days without playing, you had a little bit of a preseason in there. You know, you played a drive, if you even want to call it that, against Jacksonville in the preseason. So it was all about knocking the rust off. But the biggest thing that I saw with him is his ability to keep plays alive. Just the fact of how many times that he would avoid a sack, which would have been a big negative play, even if he just so much as got back to the line of scrimmage or maybe a 1 or 2 yard gain. You know, he may have really saved 10 yards or so just from the ability to escape. You still see that he definitely had some zip on the ball. You know, and you and I have talked about it several times. You know, people are going to point to the fact that the offense didn't score as much. You had some missed opportunities. There were interceptions, but there were also several drop touchdowns. And I think that the entire narrative about him changes when those touchdowns are made. And so I think that that's going to be the focus is next year is going to be getting him on the same page with his receivers. I do believe they're going to go out and get another receiver, whether it be in the draft, free agency. I know a lot of people are talking about DeAndre Hopkins. Not happening. No, it's just not. They're not going to do that. But I do think they're going to add somebody else. You know, a third guy that can kind of. They wanted David Bell to be that guy. Try to see what he could do this year. Same with Anthony Schwartz. Neither one of them really stepped up. You know, it's not time to, pull the plug on Bell. But you bring somebody in that can compete with them. I think they're going to do that.
It is time to pull the plug on Schwartz, though. I've had enough. Actually,
you notice I didn't say anything about Schwartz. I said It's not time to pull the plug on Bell.
Actually, I want to keep Schwartz around because the Browns are undefeated when he has a rushing attempt. So
that's true. It's that easy.
I think they're 4-0. I think he has 4 rushing attempts in 4 different games. So I think they're 4-0 in those games. So yeah, I think that we should keep him just to have him run one play and then sit him on the bench the rest of the time. And
first play of the game, it's a jet sweep. Anthony Schwartz win.
Absolutely. And then with Watson, you said that there'd be plays that he made to get either back to the line of scrimmage or get a 1 or 2 yard gain. That reminds me of his fellow backfield mate, Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb does that a lot. He's stopped 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, somehow gets to the line of scrimmage or gets at least 1 yard ahead. He was sensational again this season. He was the third leading rusher in the NFL. Did his thing. But of course, all we hear is run the ball, Kevin. We need to run the ball more. And me and you have banged our heads against the wall countless times with our Dog Pound Daily friends and a bunch of Twitter people. He had similar stats as what he did in his only other full season. Other seasons he's missed a couple games here and there for injuries. But Chubb was fantastic, and we don't need to run the ball more because if it was that easy, just give it to him 20 straight times to win the game, we win.
The funny thing is everybody was clamoring for them to run the ball. They passed too much, right? The Browns threw the ball too many times. They didn't run it enough. Right here, and pulling up some numbers, they were 21st in the NFL in passing attempts. They were 5th in the NFL in rushing attempts. They ran the ball more than, 27 other teams, 26 other teams. They run the ball way more than they get credit for. And this whole idea that Chubb didn't get enough carries, he finished the year with 302 carries. That's on the high side. You don't want running backs to consistently get over 300 carries in a year. If you don't believe me, ask DeMarco Murray, ask Larry Johnson, but from the Chiefs back in the day. I know a couple of Jamal Anderson from the Falcons, Devontae Foreman, I don't even remember his name anymore. Freeman. Devontae Freeman from the Falcons. You give these guys those kind of carries and they get beat up like that, it's bad for their careers. So the Browns were doing what every other team does. They're mixing it up. I mean, look at some of the other teams that run a lot. You got, the Dallas Cowboys run a lot. Well, Ezekiel Elliott was getting worn down from getting too many carries. Now they're splitting with Pollard, and all of a sudden their running attack looks a whole lot better. They had I think 1,900 yards between the two of them this year. Then you look at the Titans. The Titans ran the ball like crazy with Derrick Henry. Well, where was he at the end of the year? He was hurt. So the Browns are trying to be smart about it. They're not just trying to say, let's run Chubb into the ground right now. Let's use him. Let's let his career last. Let's not beat up our best player.
All right, and there's a lot of people, and there's a comment. Thank you for Andrew. Priest Holmes was another one. His career didn't last long.
That's a perfect one.
Ever. One of my favorite players ever to play football that I've ever watched. That was another case of that. But yeah, with Chubb, he'll get the first 2 series of the game, and then here comes Kareem Hunt, who did not have a great year. He's likely played his last game in Cleveland. He's a fan favorite. I love Kareem Hunt, but it's time for him to go, and hopefully he can flourish somewhere else. Hopefully it's in the NFC, and we don't have to see him when he does that. But they do that because there's not many NFL teams that just rush their lone back for 100% of the times they're out there. The only one close I can think of right now is Derrick Henry. Dontrell Hilliard gets a few carries here and there to spell him. But other than that, the Cowboys, like you said, Pollard and Zeke, they eat together. And then Green Bay, they have Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. And New England.
Look at Minnesota.
Minnesota's
got Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison.
Right, and that's across the league. Like, that's just what you need. Because if they weren't smart with Chubb would have been out of the league probably already. Even though he's a freak of nature athlete, but if he was getting Derrick Henry numbers per se, then he probably wouldn't be playing right now, and we wouldn't have anyone to talk about running the ball.
No, and you're right, because those other guys that we mentioned, and that Priest Holmes is a perfect one too. Their careers just went into a nosedive. It's rare that you get an Adrian Peterson that can do that and not get beaten down and continue to go. And he started to get beat down when he was in his 30s, but it's rare that they can go as long as he did. He was the exception, not the rule. And when you have Chubb, who already had, he's had a knee injury in the NFL, he had a knee injury in college. You don't want to just sit there and put tons and tons of mileage on him, which I think they're doing plenty of mileage on him. He's still running well. They're fifth in the NFL in rushing attempts, which is crazy to think about when you talk about a team that's 7-10, because usually when you're a losing team, you're having to throw the ball a whole lot more because you're behind. So even with them having to throw the ball in a lot of those games when they fell behind, 21st in the NFL in passing attempts. So I don't understand where that outrage came from. It's very misguided. And I think it was just people saw that we were losing and thought, oh, we got to figure it out. We got to just point to one thing, and this has got to be it.
Right, and it's always Kevin Stefanski doesn't run the ball. But at least in the Baltimore game, the reason that Nick Chubb was able to run the ball well is because Jacoby Brissett was beating the Ravens in the passing game. And, they were down and they were coming back, and Brissett was playing well, like he did most of the season. And, hey, the holes have to open up now because, hey, you're going to beat us, Brissett. Okay, watch me beat you. Oh, crap, now we have to beat him. Oh, here, Chubb, take this ball. Okay.
And we saw it at the end. Yeah, we saw it at the end of last year when Baker was struggling. And you saw it at the beginning of this year when Brissett, he wasn't firing on all cylinders in week one. It took him a couple weeks to really kind of get into a groove. But you saw then how crowded the boxes were. There was no running room. Chubb would get a few runs here and there, but you kept seeing a lot of 1 or 2 yard gains where it was kind of stalling the offense out. So it wasn't as consistent. But once you start backing those safeties up at the pass, then that's when Chubb can really do the damage. And that's another thing too, is if you just completely sell out on the run, it's never going to work. You have to have the threat. You have to be a balanced attack.
Yeah, and then with that, the 2 yard runs, the 3 yard run, and then it's 3rd and long. And then, they punt the ball away because either a drop pass or an overthrown ball or a sack or what have you. And then just like, well, why don't we run more? Because we rushed 2 times for 3 yards. Like,
yeah,
I get that he averages 5 yards a carry, but that doesn't equate all the time because he busts out with those big 20, 30, 40 yard runs. And then it's like, okay, that is what, negates it. Jack Duffin, I was talking to you before the show, Jack Duffin wrote a piece earlier. If you just ran the ball with Nick Chubb every play, the Browns would score 16 points a game.
Yeah,
because of the 2 yards. Oh, here's a 20-yarder, but that's not enough to offset that. So, of course, the crowd there is very upset, and a lot of people are going to be real pissed off at me here in a couple of days on Dog Pound Daily because I'm going to suggest something that they're not going to like. I'm not going to. It's about Nick Chubb. I'm going to suggest something. I already told you what that's going to be. I already know what the response is going to be, even though right in the beginning of the article, if you click open and read that, and you're going to see my response to my own question, but it's going to rile some people up just by the headline alone because these days you've been around fan-sided and different sites for a long time that they read the headline and then react to that, just like a few years ago with Deshaun Watson. On that. The Deshaun Watson, hey, the Browns should call about Deshaun Watson, and everyone's like, oh, what? And it made all the talking shows, the first takes,
what's funny is ESPN was talking about us, and Dan Orlovsky said that we were right for saying we should call about Deshaun Watson. Everyone else told us we were complete idiots.
Well, at the time, I get it because of Baker. He was the flavor of the month for quarterbacks, or flavor of the year for quarterbacks for us. We've had many of them over the past 24 years. He had that one great season, and then his injury prevented him from continuing that, or maybe he would still be here and we wouldn't be in this Deshaun Watson discussion, but that's not the case. Deshaun Watson is in, and we hit on earlier, the number one biggest reason or biggest offseason need for the Browns is for Stefanski and Watson to get comfortable together and get him all on track, and that gets him ready for 2023. In that, I also talked about the receivers. I mentioned Brandon Cooks, who is requesting a trade. He's been linked to the Browns countless times just because of Watson. I did put Hopkins in there. I really don't think that's realistic. You said earlier that's not going to happen. He's just going to want too much money. He's going to want to restructure.
He's going to want too much money, and look at what it cost to get Devontae Adams from the Raiders last year. The Browns don't have the draft capital to get a DeAndre Hopkins, and they've already invested. They've made their big trade of draft capital to get Sean Watson. They're not going to turn around and give up mortgage or whatever future they have left just for DeAndre Hopkins.
Now, if you can get Brandon Cooks for a third or a fourth or third and a fourth, maybe okay, I can see that. Yeah. That would help out a lot. If Glenn Cook gets hired away from the Browns, the assistant GM, if he gets hired anywhere else, he interviewed with the Titans requested permission for him the other day. If he goes, the Browns get another third round comp pick. So maybe they have a couple of third rounders at their disposal this year. They only have one, and it's a comp pick from Quasi. I can't even think of how to say his name. It's Adolfo Mensa. Yeah, Adolfo Mensa. He got signed by the Vikings almost a year ago. Browns got a comp pick last year and this year, so they don't have their own third round pick. They just have a comp pick. That could be a thing to do. I like the free agency class sucks this year for wide receivers. It's really not that good. Last year was loaded, and then everyone cashed in on the wide receivers. And we stole Amari Cooper from the Cowboys, who you cover for Landry hat, and you're inside the Browns bubble of Twitter and the Cowboys bubble of Twitter. And so last year, everyone, the Browns like, oh yeah, sweet, and the Cowboys like, okay, great, Jerry, thanks for nothing. You didn't get us anything. And then
there's not one Cowboys fan that thought that was a good trade.
Right. And there is he's $20 million, and then all these other receivers going 25, 26, 27, $28 million. So we sort of got a steal in Amari Cooper. And if we can do that again with like a Brandon Cooks, I'd be elated. There's a couple other guys out there. Someone in the network earlier in the network group chat, I believe it was Zach, said Mecole Hardman he would like. I would like that too.
Yeah. Mecole Hardman I like a lot. He worries me with his injury history. I'm going to switch gears here real quick just to say something because what you just said right there was brilliant about Amari Cooper. $20 million, all the other receivers are signing for $25 million. And the reason for that is because his contract was signed a couple of years ago. Contracts always go up. I've always said, if you want your guy, pay him right then and there. Don't get into the stupid debate like with the Ravens have got going on with Lamar Jackson right now. So I get so tired of hearing people talk about the $230 million contract for Deshaun Watson. Right. They obviously don't understand how football works and how contracts work. That $230 million contract, it's got 4 years left on it. 2 years from now, it's going to look like an absolute steal. So I don't think people understand how that works. It's kind of funny to me. Remember when the Jimmy Garoppolo contract was absolutely absurd? Well, he was making $27.5 million right now. If you got a starting quarterback for $27.5 million right now, that would be, you blow your mind. So that was the huge contract then. He just finished that contract. So, by the time Deshaun Watson's contract is done, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be, man, you got him for that much? So
yeah, because
just throwing that out there.
I forget if it's this off. I think it's this offseason. The likes of Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, they are eligible for their rookie extension. They can get extended. They're going to get paid. Lamar Jackson is going to get paid, whether the Ravens want. Hopefully the Ravens don't pay him, obviously, so he can get out of the division and we never have to see him. And I can actually root for him, like fully. I'm a big Lamar fan, but I can't be a fan of him as he's in our division and has killed us for a long time. And
his best negotiation tactic, and I don't think it was a real tactic, but when he got hurt, that is like, I don't know. I think Tyler Huntley did okay last year, and so I think maybe the Ravens were thinking, if he leaves, we could probably still win with Huntley. Well, when Lamar Jackson got hurt, they realized, no, we can't win with Huntley. So I think that was the biggest bargaining chip he had. Right. It's like he just needs to play game film from when he was out.
And speaking of the $230 million contract, there's two things with it. First off, people think that just because he's played 6 games, he should be the 2020 version of himself. And you said earlier, and I've said numerous times throughout Twitter and Dog Pound Daily, he did not play for 700 days. You can get all the practices you want. You can go get all the college receivers and take them to a high school field and have them run routes for you. And you can do one preseason game with like 1 or 2 series, however much he played. That's not NFL game speed. So he's not going to be up to speed on that. And then with the $230 million, Jack Duff has been saying a lot. What he thinks that what they're going to do this offseason is restructure his contract, where it's not as big of a cap hit. The cap hit's going to be he still can get his money, but that's cap, not the actual cap hit. And obviously, that's going to be something the Browns need to do if they are going to want to sign free agents because they don't have much cap space before that. Because now all the bigger contracts are Myles Garrett, His contract is it start this coming year? The big money for him.
I believe so. Yeah.
And then
But
Amari Cooper at 20 is a steal for a wide receiver, a premium wide receiver this year. Had a career high, and I believe it was touchdowns for sure. It might have been yards too, but he had a career year. And then they're going to want to extend Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's not going to get outrageous money, but the money does pile up. But at the same time, like you said, it's just going to go up and up and up each year. This new deal for the Sunday ticket going to, I think it was YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're going to get, revenue from that. And then the revenue is going to go up. So like you said, in 2 or 3 years, the $230 million contract is going to look like, oh, great, it's a steal. Now, maybe it won't be all guaranteed. But if I were quarterbacks in the NFL, hey, he got that guaranteed. And, I took my team to the Super Bowl, in Joe Burrow's case, back to the playoffs. Justin Herbert finally made the playoffs. Hey, I want my money. Let's give it to me. And these owners are going to have to shell it out, or they're not going to have a quarterback, and it's going to be the same cycle for a lot of these teams.
Yeah, and as far as fully guaranteed goes, maybe you don't take the fully guaranteed if you're already with the team. You kind of have a little bit of rapport with them. But if you're sitting here and you have the bargaining chips like Deshaun Watson does, where whether you're a free agent or in his situation where you had a no trade clause, you've got all the chips in the world. So yeah, you can sit there. And Cleveland wasn't his hometown. He grew up near Atlanta. Atlanta was offering a similar contract. Cleveland had to up the ante just a bit to make sure they got their guy, make sure they got their quarterback. And I'm totally fine with the fully guaranteed contract because, it's a gamble because you're hoping that the guy never gets hurt. But if you gamble right, that's the only way you're going to win in the NFL is with the quarterback. So they had to make a gamble like that. But another thing too about the salary cap, it's not real.
Yes.
So that's what people don't. I mean, people get so bent out of shape and worked up over it. Like, you realize for the next 4 years, we're going to be paying your Davian Clowney. I think it was $6.2 million this year, $1.6 million for the next 4 years or 3 years after that. And the reason for that is because the cap's not real and you can just keep pushing money down. And someone says, well, eventually it comes due. Well, no, it doesn't. Because if you think it comes due, just watch the New Orleans Saints, who every year we get into the offseason and they're negative, $100 million in the red. And then all of a sudden they make 2 moves, they restructure 1 or 2 contracts, and they have $70 million cap space. So the salary cap, it's not going to be an issue. It's never been an issue for these teams. Maybe, occasionally they might have to make some cuts here and there. But it's never going to be, we have to get rid of our absolute best player. Even look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs, because they paid all these people so much, they had to get rid of Tyreek Hill. They still had, 5,000 yards passing and 48 touchdowns. They knew they could be fine without him. So, cap's not real. You're going to be able to get whatever you want with it. And I think Jack's right that you're going to restructure Deshaun Watson's contract next year and kick it down the road. And then when it starts to become ready to do again, they might be extending them, do a whole new deal and kick that one down the road. So that's just the way it goes. And
the same thing can be said probably for Myles Garrett as well. I don't know if he'll restructure this year. It might be coming next offseason, not this coming one. I don't know how Andrew Berry's going to work that, but there are things obviously he has not done right. Draft picks he hasn't got right. Free agent signings he hasn't got right. But he knows the salary cap and knows the situation. Yeah. That's why he has those void years. Hey, that's going to be down the road. And then when the salary cap explodes to $50 more million, oh hey, we'll just take there's $6 million here that we owe someone, and here you can have it now. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yep. With Garrett though, obviously me and you have talked a lot. I've been very critical of his leadership. But where I will defend Myles is with what Jadeveon Clowney said on his way out before he got benched in the finale, acting as if Myles Garrett, who is one of the best, if not the best edge rusher in the NFL, should not get put in the most premium matchups possible. And, I would have had 10 sacks if I was in this match. No, you wouldn't have. You would have been crying because you weren't getting that Myles got through on the double teams and you couldn't get through on a single, assignment. So
I didn't like it. I didn't like what he said. But I also don't like when Myles goes and says things about teammates or the coaches either. I think a lot of that needs to stay in house. The one thing that I thought was a little bit telling in there that he said was how he made a comment about they're not worried about wins. They're worried about getting Myles Garrett into the Hall of Fame. And I think one of the things I've been critical about Myles Garrett about is you can go out there and see this team is losing, and he's still at the podium talking about how many sacks he has, how much he needs to break his own record, and what he needs to do to get. He did mention the Hall of Fame recently. He's mentioned the Defensive Player of the Year award. So that's where it goes back to what you talked about, being a little critical of his leadership.
Mhm.
To me, he's not sending the right message to his teammates. He's sending the message that he's sending. Clowney may not have received it right. Clowney reacted wrong, but the message that Clowney's hearing is, hey, this guy's the team leader. He's up here telling me everything he wants to do for himself.
Right.
That doesn't mean that he's right, that he should get premium matchups. No, Myles Garrett absolutely should get the premium matchups. But Myles Garrett should also not be standing in front of the podium saying, hey, look at me, look what I can do. It needs to be about the team. And then that's where I get a little critical of his leadership, because I feel like, there's not enough of a focus on a we. It's hey, this guy's doing something wrong. This coach is doing something wrong. But hey, look at my numbers and look at my, chances of winning Defensive Player of the Year. And I think that that's something that hopefully will change. Hopefully he kind of, gets out of that. And it also comes back to, winning cures everything. If they're winning, I probably wouldn't even notice it. Most of us wouldn't notice it. But I will say at the end of the year, it seemed like after that discipline he got where he didn't have to sit and play, we didn't get to play for 3 games. He seemed like he was a little more kind of in control with what he was saying. I see MC Lawrence here just said Clowney wanted to be sent home. Probably. Clowney doesn't like working out. He doesn't like off season. So he probably was done. There's nothing for him to play for. But I will, it was after Myles got benched for that series. I noticed he seemed a little more, respectful towards his coaches. Yeah, a little humbled. So hopefully that carries over into next year.
See, that situation was hilarious because there were me and you send each other people's tweets all the time, and we have a good laugh, or we're like, how stupid is this, and all that good stuff. And we're not the only 2 people who ever do that. I'm not saying that everyone does this. But some of these people are trying to pit it against Stefanski versus Myles, and we need to get rid of Stefanski and keep Myles because you don't get rid of a player like that. Well, first off, no one's getting rid of anybody. Neither one of them are going anywhere, at least this year. We'll see how 2023 plays out for Stefanski, but I don't think he's going anywhere for a while. But Myles Garrett got benched for 3 plays. That's it, 3 plays. That's it, and then he's back on the field because I didn't notice it at first, and I saw a few people say, "Is Myles Garrett hurt? Where's Myles Garrett at?"
What's funny is the majority of people didn't notice it because it wasn't a story. Like you said, there's something here or there. And when I saw "Where's Myles," I thought it was the people doing their little, "Where's Myles? It's an important play and he didn't make a sack." I didn't even catch on that he wasn't on the field. I get it. It was a 3 and out. It started and it was over so quick. Nobody even realized it till it got brought up on Monday. So the game was a Saturday game. And then on Monday it got brought up, and all of a sudden, hell is freezing over. This is the team's falling apart. And then Myles comes out and says, "No, it was my bad. I messed up. It's not going to happen again." And as I said, you didn't hear him complaining about the coaches near the end of the season. He even defended Joe Woods a little bit. So I think he was frustrated early in the year, which I get. He got frustrated with the losing, and I think maybe the kind of being humbled there made him realize, maybe I'm handling this the wrong way. Whatever it wasn't a big deal. And like you said, they're not going anywhere.
And speaking of Joe Woods, he finally got released by the Browns. That was something that many fans and many people in our Dog Pound Daily site have wanted for a while, have speculated on for quite a while. It seemed like every week. But the past, 2 months of the season, the last 2 months of the season, the defense played mostly better overall. And I always tweeted out, "Hire Joe Woods." And, obviously me and you talked about it. It would have been hilarious had they brought him back, had they gotten new pieces for the defense, which I think they will in the offseason, and see what he can do with that. Obviously, that wasn't the case. The defense was a big reason the team finished 7-10. Obviously, the offense had its fair share of things too. The offensive line regressed. They weren't as elite this year as what they have been and what we've been accustomed to seeing. You had Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. Regardless, he played well. The defense didn't play well for him. And then there would be times that the defense played well, and then Brissett couldn't keep up with the opposing team's offense. But Joe Woods is gone. The Browns have 4 interviews lined up. One is Brian Flores, who is the Steelers linebackers coach, and I think he's the assistant defensive coordinator, assistant, whatever he is.
Senior defensive assistant or something to that effect.
I didn't even know it was a thing until last year that they had senior assistants and stuff. And
special assistant to the regional manager, I think.
Yes, absolutely. So he's one of them. Gerard Mayo from the Patriots, linebackers coach there. He is one of them. What is it? Sean Desai, is that how you say his name?
Mm-hmm. Dr. Defense.
Yeah, he's the assistant head coach, the associate head coach, but they don't do the assistant things unless it's assistant running backs coach, whatever. Yeah. All these different names. He is one of them. Jim Schwartz from the Titans, former Eagles defensive coordinator. So of those 4, if we are going to sign one of them, who is your favorite that you would like them to sign?
I like Jim Schwartz because I feel like he's had success in the league. He's won. He won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. He's always been putting one of the best defenses out there. But the biggest reason I like him, excuse me, is the wide nine. I think would be fantastic for Myles Garrett. It gives him a little bit of an advantage. He spreads his defensive ends out a little bit more. They're still got their hand in the dirt, but yet they're kind of playing from almost an outside linebacker setting. Allows them to get a little bit more of their athleticism and speed going after the linebacker. He put up a lot of really good defenses, but never had a player the caliber of Myles Garrett. So I'd like to see him. Joel Cade from Dog Pound Daily put a really good piece together. He wants Desai. He nicknames start calling him Dr. Defense because he's got a PhD. And Desai, he seems like a really just a brilliant coach. But Joel had said that he thinks Jim Schwartz will have the most success now. But he did point out the fact that he's a little bit older. He's already stepped away from the game once before, so maybe he's not the right long-term answer. But he agrees that right, if he came in right now, you're going to probably have success with him in 2023. But I think another conclusion that he came to is that he believed it was going to be Desai who's going to be hired. Ivy League graduate with a PhD. He kind of reminds me of an Andrew Berry type guy, but he also a little bit of the Kevin Stefanski in him. And that if you remember, Stefanski was in Minnesota for like 13 years, and he went through several different regimes. You had was it? I can't even remember the coach's name. No way. I was going to say Jim Caldwell, but that's not Jim Caldwell. It doesn't matter. Whoever it was, he went from one coach to another coach. He kept staying on. No matter when the coaches would leave, they would keep him because he was like that. Well, that was Desai in Chicago. He worked under Mark Trestman. He worked under Matt Nagy. He finally ended up leaving this year. It was in Seattle. So he's kind of that up and coming younger guy. You may not have as much success with him right away, but he could be the long term guy.
So obviously with this, that was my first point in my piece on Dog Pound that came out this morning. They, find the defense coordinator. Obviously they got an early head start on the offseason. Monday morning they hit the ground running with that. They fired Joe Woods and then requested interviews for Gerard Mayo and then Brian Flores, and that sent Twitter into a good frenzy for once. That was a name that I've heard all season that Browns fans have said, hey, go get him in the offseason. He'll fix this defense. And then and some of them said when Kevin Stefanski messes up next year, he'll just take over as coach, which I don't think they understand that while he was a solid coach for, the Dolphins, he had a losing record. It wasn't always, sunshines and rainbows. And then, the fact that he wanted to, or he's suing the NFL, I think he's still in the process of that for racial discrimination in the hiring process. I believe it's the Giants, the Dolphins, and another team. So
I don't remember the other team, but
maybe he shouldn't have been fired from Miami, and maybe someone else should have hired him. But he went to a great defensive culture. The Steelers have a great defensive culture, and I hate saying anything good about the Steelers, but you have to give credit where it's due. We see them twice a year. We saw them at the end of the season. They beat the brakes off us in the second half mostly. Started at the end of the first half, but still great defensive culture. He's a great defensive mind, so I wouldn't mind seeing him. I don't care which one it is. I really don't have a preference. I'd like to see what Gerard Mayo can do, but I don't know if he's ready to be the defensive coordinator of a team yet. But I love what he brings to the table, and I love his experience and all that. So if it came to me, I agree with MC Lawrence. I would either take Flores or Schwartz, but I wouldn't be mad at Desai or Gerard Mayo, depending on how that goes. But someone was saying earlier on Twitter that don't let Brian Flores leave Thursday when he comes in for the interview. If that's the case, great. If that's the case, that might bring all of Brown's Twitter together, but then at the same time split them again because Kevin Stefanski needs to leave, which he does not. And then Brian Flores will just come in and he'll save the day because he's such an offensive genius, mind you. That's what.
And Brian Flores, I don't think would be a bad hire. I know people talking like you said about him being he's been a head coach before. I wasn't too super thrilled with what he did as a head coach. I really didn't like how he had co-offensive coordinators. It was a weird thing, and I think that confused the quarterback a lot. So I don't really think I'd want Flores in the future being the coach of this head coach of the team. I also don't think he's ever actually been a defensive coordinator. And I'm looking at it now. Now he's never been a defensive coordinator, so there's nothing that's telling me that he's automatically going to come in and do it right away. My biggest worry with him and with Gerard Mayo is some fact that they come from New England, and you don't have a lot of successful coaches that come out of New England, not long term anyway. Josh McDaniels, if you want to consider him successful at tearing teams to the ground, he does that very well.
Good, yeah.
But Bill Belichick doesn't have a coaching tree. It's Bill Belichick. So it's kind of like when people used to hire Peyton Manning's offensive coordinator. It wasn't the offensive coordinator, it was Peyton Manning. Sometimes you might want to just kind of learn from the past. I'm a little hesitant to hire anybody from New England. Look what Joe Judge did with the New York Giants. They couldn't wait to get him out of there. Brian Dable comes in and, now they're a good team again. So I'm very hesitant to hire anybody from New England just because of how it's gone anytime they've gone anywhere. Matt Patricia was a dumpster fire with the Lions. So you bring Dan Campbell in, now a couple of years later, they actually look like a good team. So that worries me a bit. And again, like you said, yes, I know Flores has had success with the Steelers, but that's kind of it's a well-coached team that plays defense really well. So not saying I wouldn't hire them. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a complete slam dunk if you hire them. But again, I think Jim Schwartz is a guy that I saw the comment come up earlier that he wouldn't be taking crap from anybody. And I think that's true. He's got a little bit of that in him. He's, doesn't seem like the most pleasant guy, but he's a good coach. So he's one that I think, I don't think you just say, hey, let's hire Brian Flores because he's here. I think you need to talk to all of them.
Right. And speaking of that, this respecting coaches thing, and he's not going to take crap from anyone. Well, did the players, there was a bevy of them. There was the Jadeveon Clowney and John Johnson III, both probably not going to be Cleveland Browns in 2023. They were very critical of the coaches and their teammates at times, but then they didn't put out any effort. I forget what week it was earlier in the season. John Johnson came out and said, hey, my teammates aren't doing this, and the coaching staff isn't doing that, and we need to do this and that. And he came out and was awful for most of the year.
Yeah.
Made maybe a few. Actually, he led the team in tackles, or was second in tackles, but that's not enough. He had so many blown coverages, and at some point that's on the players. Is it not? The coaches can only call the plays. Sometimes call wrong. Yes, absolutely. But come on, you have to go out there and play.
I get destroyed a lot for some of my takes, but back in week 2, I had said that the Browns reached the height of dysfunction with the players only meeting that early. No, in the history of all sports, there's never been a players only meeting in the second week. Also, tell me when a players only meeting turned into something successful. That usually means that the players and the coaches aren't on the same page. So the players are getting together, already having an issue with the coach, and then saying the only way we can solve this issue is to kick the coach out of here.
Right.
Then you have Myles Garrett questioning the coach openly. And now all of a sudden, your team leader's questioning the coach. The entire defense is meeting without the coaches. You're going out on the field. You're not listening to the coaches. As you said, they're not executing. It was a bad thing all around. I don't think Joe Woods is as bad of a coach as he got made out to be. He got hit with a lot of injuries. Now, is he a great coach? Probably. I don't know, but I don't think he's as bad as it looked. He's had success. As a defensive coordinator, he won or he went to the Super Bowl. I think he did win a Super Bowl with Denver as a secondary coach, and then he went to the Super Bowl with the Niners. He has had success, but the players, I don't think ever bought in. That's why I do think it was the right move to move on. But they still do need to get a few more pieces in there. You can't just go out there with these same exact guys and expect different results.
Right, especially no matter who it is, whether it's Flores, Schwartz, Desai, Mayo, some outside candidate that we're not even talking about right now, whatever it is. But I think that is where we'll lead to next. But I think that's one of the biggest things they need to do in the offseason is fix the defense. First, it starts with the coordinator, and then let the coordinator get guys that he thinks will fit his system well. And obviously Andrew Berry is going to be the one that goes and tries to sign these players. One player that a lot of Browns fans have been salivating for if they can get him, and I doubt it happens because I think he's going to stay where he's at, is Daron Payne of the Washington Commanders. I think they're going to franchise tag him if they don't pay him outright. They'd be foolish to let him leave. But someone said earlier, another comment hey, if he comes to the building, if we get him in the building, don't let him leave that building, without signing a contract. And he's gonna get a little bit of a payday. I think he was at about $3.5 million this year. He's gonna get that bump, so he might get a Jadeveon Clowney type contract. obviously it'd be for more years because he actually comes to the training camp and he produces and doesn't cry about things. That'd be a perfect thing. But I just want two big dudes in the middle who can clog the rushing lanes and also get after the quarterback. When Myles Garrett is getting double teamed and sometimes triple teamed, the other 3 or 4 guys on the line have to be able to get through. And I just want that so badly, just so they can, because they were awful at stopping the run this year. I think they were like the 5th worst team or 8th worst, something like that.
They were terrible.
Bottom 10. There was times that, finally it looked like, hey, all right, they're going to, stop this. And then there'd be a blown coverage and that didn't matter. So what, obviously, me and you and everyone else at Dog Pound Daily over the next couple of months, we're going to write pieces on who would be good fits, defensive tackles and wide receivers. And then we'll incorporate draft in that as well. But obviously free agency comes first. So who are some guys on the defensive line that you think could go out and get that aren't going to, cost a fortune?
You see, first of all, I would disagree. I don't think that Daron Payne is going to get Jadeveon Clowney type contract. I think he's going to get a lot more than what you're thinking.
Oh.
I think Daron Payne will get a contract that's going to be. I don't think he's going to get to free agency either. I agree with you. I think he's going to get franchise tag. I think if he does sign an extension, we're going to be a little bit shocked about how big it is. I think he's just one of those type of players. I think, and another thing that always makes me laugh with it's all fans, but Browns fans seem to do it a lot where it's, we need to get the guy here. We need to get, don't let him. Well, the players have a say in it too. I don't think Daron Payne is coming to a struggling defense that, needs complete overhauls. If he's going to leave, that's kind of where he is now. So it's like, if he's going to leave Washington, he's going to go for someone that he feels like is kind of, closer to making a run. But this year, there's really another guy that got mad about was Ndamukong Suh, going to the Eagles. And it's like, well, he wasn't coming to, at the time, I think we were 3-6, 4-7, whatever it was. But it's like, he's not coming to that team. He's an established veteran. He was going to go to a contender, which is what he did. But unfortunately, you're talking about the receiver class not being real great in free agency. It's kind of the same in the NFL, like from free agency, or for the defensive tackle. Sorry, there's, Dalvin Tomlinson's out there. Same thing. He might be a little bit expensive. That's really about it. You got Tristan Hill, who was with the Cowboys and then the Cardinals. He was 2nd round pick, but kind of a bust.
What about the dude from Carolina? I don't know how to say
Matt Ioannidis.
Yeah.
I don't see him as a free agent.
I thought he was a free agent. I thought that I wrote about him at the for the trade deadline.
And he may be, because he's a very underrated player. Let me just go ahead and pull just Carolina up here. Bear with me. But yeah, okay. I guess they listed him as a defensive end. So, I don't believe he's a defensive end. I think he's more of a
tackle. Because
you
actually suggested me to him because I needed one more person for one of the trade pieces for the trade deadline, like defensive tackles they could trade for that they could possibly extend for relatively cheap next year, and he was one of them. I thought he was a defensive tackle, and
I believe. I think he is. I don't know why. I was looking over here at Spot Track, and I guess they had him as defensive ends for a reason. But he's listed. He's a defensive tackle. He had 37 tackles, 1 sack last year. He's a very underrated player because if you just look at his numbers, he's not going to blow you away. He'll be 29 years old this year, so he's not going to kind of fits into what Barry wants. He's not a long-term answer. But he's a 310 pounder that he does the dirty work. He does the stuff that you're talking about there where he gets in there and he clogs up the lanes. So he's definitely somebody that I would have an eye, wouldn't have any problem with them going after.
Yeah, so they definitely need, and this comment was earlier while you were talking from MC Lawrence, and I appreciate you commenting along through us and talking to us throughout the night. Need veteran leaders on the field who hold other players accountable. I absolutely agree with that. I thought at the time when he first came, I thought Anthony Walker was a perfect fit for that role because he was a leader. I thought Malcolm Smith fit that role too, and it didn't work out. And then Anthony Walker gets hurt this year, and it seemed like everyone around the defense, obviously they played bad, but they sort of like crumbled when he went out, because then you have all these different linebackers playing the wrong linebacker position. JOK was all over the field, which he can play any of them, but he's better suited at different one. And they just didn't have any linebacker, which linebacker is not overly important, but Anthony Walker was that presence in the middle that was the leader of the team, sort of without being the leader of the team. He was just that veteran guy. And I would love to see veterans. I just don't know who they're going to go target, because if you play linebacker for Cleveland, you're probably going to get hurt at some point.
It's so sad. Another defensive name out there, defensive tackle, is Ashawn Robinson. But I don't know how much he would cost. Former Ram, former Lion. He's another big body guy, 330 pounds. So, he wouldn't be bad, but I don't know how realistic he would be, what he would want. But I think defensive tackles more than anything, you could probably get somebody 4th, 5th round. There's a few guys I like in this draft. Keanu Benton's one of them. But yeah, there's a couple out there I think in the draft that might be the way they go. But you're right, the linebacker position, it's just cursed, and I don't know what it is. I mean, you could sit there and say, well, I've been a little critical of Barry for going after players that have injury history, but even there, it's like the linebackers that he's bringing in, they don't have the injury history. It's been mostly guys in the secondary that he's drafted that have had injury history. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if it's something in the water, but it's and that was one of the things I was talking about with Joe Woods. It's really been unfortunate for him that he just never has had a solid 11 guys that were his starters throughout the year.
So the secondary this year played, I thought, a lot better. Obviously, there was blown coverages. There's blown coverages from even the best defenses in the NFL. That's going to happen, whether they slip and fall or they just get confused, or a receiver just runs a great route and just is like, all right, see, like Christian Watson's first touchdown this year when he went on to score like 7 in 3 games. He just ran a little like up and shimmied. It looked like he was about to go post, went up again, and then he ran the post, and the defense was nowhere to be found. But that's the thing. I thought that they played a lot better this year. But Andrew Berry cannot neglect the run stoppers this year. He did that last year. I was one of the people who said, how many games have defensive tackles won or lost for teams? And that was echoed throughout Twitter by various different people. And then I realized, hey, we need someone that can actually be competent and be in there. Tommy Togiai, loved him in Ohio State. And I love the fact that they drafted him because he's from Ohio State, and the Browns don't get very many Ohio State players. Obviously, Denzel Ward's there, but they don't get a lot of them, even though they are right down the highway from. But I was like, all right, sweet. And then I was watching him just in preseason, his rookie year, and I was like, man, this guy looks small. Like, I know he's strong and he, strong first, but I was like, this dude is small. We gotta get some big beefy dudes in there and just, hey, stop this run.
And I don't think that you do have to go out and pay the big money for a guy. I don't think that you need, that's why I was talking about Ashawn Robinson may not be a good fit, even if he's not making the $10 million or whatever it is. I don't think you need that. I think you just need somebody that's capable of clogging up some of the run lanes. And it seems like the majority of the defensive tackles that Cleveland has, they're all suited for that 3-tech interior pass rushing role. And I understand the concept of that. The concept is we're going to constantly attack the quarterback and stop the run on the way because the pass is what's important. So I do understand that, but you have to at least have that guy that can get in there and make a little bit of noise with his weight and just clog up the holes some. Yeah. So yeah, I think that they need to look for somebody like that. But I think even just as important, or even maybe even more so, is they need a free safety. They need a center field type of safety. Their safeties, none of them. I don't think any of them are terrible. I think they're all they fit the same mold where they can do a little bit of coverage, but they're much more comfortable kind of playing more of that hybrid role, playing in the box a little bit, being more hitters than they are in coverage, unless it's John Johnson III and Gus Edwards is running at him. Then he doesn't want to hit. But they need that center fielder that can go back there. I know he ended up being a bust in his second year, but it's kind of like, remember when Marius Randall came in from Green Bay, and he had that one really good year, and they just had that guy that patrolled the back end of the defense. And, if you misfired over the top, he was going to pick the ball off, or, you didn't see as many busted coverages when he was back there. You need that guy that's got that speed that can cover and kind of prevent the home run ball.
Right, and that was where I was going to get you. I talked about the secondary being good, but they were missing that true free safety. The other safeties are fine for their roles, but they're not free safeties. They're not the ones roaming that backfield, like you said. And then, hey, if that ball gets up there, it's, getting picked off. Before he, deserted us and what became a traitor, Jacob wrote about some, free safeties he saw in the draft or saw on tape early for draft coverage. I think that I don't know if see the draft is always iffy for me because and especially and I know I just see Brown's Twitter, but this is everyone's Twitter, all 32 teams. They just think that just because they pick these guys and Andrew Berry picks him, he's a steal or whatever. They expect them to come in and be all pros as rookies. Like, oh yeah, we got defensive tackles and we got a free safety. That doesn't mean they're going to be good right out the gate. So I mean, obviously there's going to be, a handful of draft picks that are going to be great their rookie year. Micah Parsons comes to mind. He's still been great for the Cowboys, but you're not going to get a Micah Parsons at every position. That's just unrealistic to think. And I did write the other day they have to use free agency and then the draft to get some guys that in the earlier rounds, like the second and third round, to come in and be able to actually like make plays when needed to early in the rookie year, and then get guys that can develop for the future because they're going to be the cheaper guys. Once some of these older guys and more expensive guys leave the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like you said, just because you're drafted doesn't mean you're going to produce. And I think what happened is Donovan Peoples-Jones came in and played so well for a 6th round pick that everybody just assumed every pick Andrew Berry made was going to be a home run. We mentioned David Bell earlier. David Bell wasn't a bust as a 3rd round pick. He did what you would think a 3rd round pick would do. Right. He performed a whole lot better than Jalen Tolbert, who was another 3rd round pick for Dallas. You talked about Dallas drafted Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons was a fantastic pick. Well, this year they took Jalen Tolbert in the 3rd round. I think he had 2 catches for 12 yards. He was hardly even saw the field. So, 3rd round picks, it's hit or miss, and you can't keep counting on those guys. So yeah, I do think that you need to get a veteran in there. And you talked about Jacob's article. I agree with him on his favorite safety was J.L. Skinner from Boise State, who's really good in that free safety role. I think if he's there in the 2nd round, he's a great fit. I did just see the question about Grant Delpit. I don't know that Grant Delpit will ever develop into an elite safety, but I think he's a very, very good safety. And I think we saw that coming on near the end of the year. He was really, starting to make plays. He was getting better in coverage, but the more comfortable Grant Delpit is, the more confident that he is. I do think he could be a very good safety.
Yeah. And he was one of the better defensive players from, I think it was like week 7 or week 8 on. He was, I swear, every time, if I'd look away for a minute, I'd turn around and see the play happen. And there's Grant Delpit at the ball.
Yeah.
He wasn't always, forcing turnovers, but he was always there. A lot of times he'd tackle him right as soon as the guy caught it, or he'd come up and, stop, a running back or a screen pass, which obviously screen passes win games. That's what Twitter tells us all the time, that if you just throw screens more, they win. Yeah, I think he played tremendously. I think it was either him or John Johnson of the team in tackle. I think it was him. I forget which one it was because one of them led in assists and one of them led in total tackles, and I can't remember which one is which. They're 1 and 2 with her. When I looked at it the other night, I never thought John Johnson was anywhere close to that. Yeah. But Delpit, every game I watched, I was like, man, he has to have like 5 or 6 tackles right now. Midway through the game, and sure enough, he'd have 5 or 6 and finish with like 8 to 12 or whatever. So I think he can be very good. Switching sides.
I'm getting text messages here now for ignoring Jacob's comment. I believe he's the one that was just commenting that I had the voice of an angel, and now there it goes again, and he's text messaging me for ignoring him. I'm sorry, Jacob. Thank you.
No, we're not sorry for you, Jacob. You left us high and dry, so we will. I really didn't know that was Jacob. I didn't know which member of the network that actually was because there's 16 of us. So I
wasn't sure either, but then my text messages started going off. So.
Jacob's trying to sweeten us up because he had to leave us and go better his life. Oh, buddy, like I appreciate that, but I'm glad you found something that you like, even though now you're a trader. So
yeah,
it's all love, Jake. I'm just kidding.
I wish him the absolute best as long as he's miserable.
Yes, that's fantastic. Before we wrap this up, there is another player I want to talk about that has been getting a lot of shit this year, and I don't think it's warranted. Even Andrew Berry said it's not warranted, and that's Jedrick Wills. The 10th overall pick a couple years ago. He's not Joe Thomas. Hey, he's not even Tristan Wirfs, who was drafted before in that draft. But is he as bad as what Twitter tells me he is?
You know what? He's got the worst body language. And I think that really is what a lot of it's driven from. I think he's not elite. I don't think he's lived up to the number 10 overall pick, but he's also not a terrible player, I don't believe. I think he's still, he's a starter. If he were to leave the Browns, he would go start somewhere else. Maybe he would have been better off staying at right tackle, perhaps. But I think what really hurts him is you see so many plays where he's out of the play. He's not going to be able to, the guys got back him, Watson's been sacked, whatever, and he just comes kind of, walking into this screen, just looking like he's moving slow, and so people think, oh, he just gave up on the play. He's not even trying. So I think it's a lot of that body language. I mean, obviously, if he was really not trying, he'd just be getting bowled over on every single play. I think it's more of people are getting a little frustrated, and then they see that it doesn't look great when he's got that body language, but I don't think that he's a terrible player by any means.
What frustrates me the most about it is you have these idiots on Twitter who, for whatever reason, do this for free on their own Twitter things. They don't do it for a publication. They don't do it and get paid for it. But they have the All-22. Everyone can watch the All-22. I can watch the All-22. That doesn't mean I know what the hell I'm talking about. I always say I'm not a big film guy. Like, I can see things during a game. Like when Myles Garrett got moved over to like the linebacker against Washington. And I said to you, I was like, did they just move Myles Garrett like to linebacker when he got that sack? And you're like, I think they did. And then, other people mentioned it and stuff. And that was an adjustment from Joe Woods at the time. But with Jedrick Wills, everyone does see like they call him lazy and he doesn't put forth the effort. I'm like, you see one clip. The broadcast clip or the All-22 where he's walking, when the play is not even involving him anymore. It's on the opposite side of the field. So what do you want him to do? Sprint all the way over there? Is that what you want him to do? I don't know what these people want.
Yeah.
I get
a lot of times
sucks. The body language does suck, but there are people out there saying, oh, he doesn't care about football. He doesn't care about this and that. How the hell do you know? You're not there.
Yeah, and I think too, those clips, there's the clips that people keep sharing. It's like he's walking like that, but the play's over. Like Deshaun Watson's on the ground,
right?
Like so you can't just sit there and say he wasn't trying based off of that clip. But yeah, I do think that there's definitely room for improvement for him, especially when it comes to the penalties. That's the biggest thing I think he needs to get cleaned up. But I don't think that it's hey, we got to get rid of this guy. He's not salvageable. I don't think
it's need to get rid of him. Who's going to replace him with? Like
James Hudson.
Oh, great! He did so well. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
he's not bad.
You don't want to get rid of him.
But he's not always, what we need him to be. But yeah, so that will wrap up Browns talk for tonight. I'm sure I'll have Randy back at different points. We'll talk free agency. We'll talk, the draft coming up. He's a big draft guy. Obviously, we're going to work together in Dog Pound Daily. He cleans up my articles nice and neat for me. There's sometimes where I'm just like, I'll always look through it and like, oh, he didn't change much. And then there'll be like one tiny thing I notice. I'm like, wow, that makes this thing like great. So I appreciate it for that. Appreciate it for coming on. So go ahead and plug anything you want to plug. You write for like 18 different sites. So go ahead and list them off.
Yeah, you can catch me at Dog Pound Daily. You can catch me also on NFL Spin Zone. And if you like the Dallas Cowboys at all, I write for Landry Hat as well, which covers them. It does not cover Jarvis Landry, as Eddie thought that it did when I first posted articles on there.
Because he's not a big Jarvis Landry guy. And I was like, you write for a site dedicated to Jarvis Landry? Because I did not know this existed. I didn't even know Dog Pound Daily really existed for a while until I signed on with them and everything. And it's been, I think, almost 2 years at the end of this month. But I thought he was writing like satirical pieces on Jarvis Landry, honestly. So again, thank you, Randy, for coming on. Here in just a couple minutes, the Faithful Dogs with Zach, Jack, and Tyler. Right after that, the Barking Browns, the trader Jacob Roach. I mean, hey, buddy. Him and Nick Carnes on the Barking Brown Show on a special Wednesday edition of that show. Dog Chug, 10 p.m. One of my favorite podcasts. I don't get to watch it every week. I do try. They do clips every couple days after that, so I go and try and watch those. Fantastic. Make sure to go follow Homage. Great partner with us. Can't wait to see what we have in store with them. And we're also giving away 3 NBA Jam shirts. There was 15 new ones recently out. I don't even know what they are. I haven't even looked yet because I've been at work most of the day and don't have service. But we're giving away 3 of those. Go network_216 on Twitter. Find that. Find the details. And a week from now, the results of that will be announced. Obviously, you can find me at King Edward 15. A lot of things coming to Dog Pound Daily. I'll be putting in hopefully a little bit more work than I have lately. But I mean, I picked it up a little bit. It just depends with work and everything in life. And again, yeah, we're same time next week. I should be back. I don't foresee myself taking any time off anytime soon. Hopefully this new year is good to everyone. Hopefully you all prosper in whatever you are doing. And if you ever need to talk about anything, hit me up. You see the at Kenward 15 there. I'm down to talk about anything. And until next time, go Browns.